Hi, I'm Alexis. I live in Wolverhampton. I have one child and she's 9 months old. It was all going to plan through my pregnancy, and then it got to the day when my waters broke and there were meconium in the water. So I went to the midwife-led unit. They said, no, we can't have you here. You have to go up to the induction and to the birthing suite. And then there was a whole cascade of interventions from there that I'd hoped that I wouldn't have to have as part of my birth. I was induced with the gel, and then from there I was in quite a lot of pain. I'd intended to try and birth without any pain relief or as little pain relief as possible, but I was in so much pain. I ended up having pethidine, and everything was actually going okay. It wasn't what I'd wanted, but it was the birth that I'd got, and I was, working through it. And it was in the last maybe 15 minutes or so. There was a midwife change, and then it kind of went downhill from there. I wanted to slow down, they wanted to speed up, and I did do a birth reflection, and there was no kind of reason, actually, like clinical reason, that they needed to rush me along because we were both fine. But yeah, they ended up saying they were going to do an episiotomy, which I rejected. They wanted to do forceps, which I also rejected. And she was eventually born fine, but I did suffer a third-degree tear, so it was quite a traumatic experience in that sense of not being listened to and then having a birth injury in the end. I was breastfed as a baby, and my mum takes great pleasure in telling me repeatedly that she breastfed me until I was 4 years old. It was something that I always intended to do, and interestingly, I stayed in touch with all of the women who I took the NCT antenatal course with, and they all had their babies prior to me. So I was watching them in our WhatsApp group saying, I can't do this, this is really hard, I had no idea how hard this was going to be, I've switched to formula, I'm doing combi feeding, and I was watching all this happen over the weeks before I gave birth, and I was thinking, that's not going to be me, I am going to breastfeed, I am determined to do this. And actually when it came to it, it was really, really hard, and but I was prepared for it because I'd watched these women struggle over the previous weeks. So I knew that there was a chance that it was going to be difficult, and I was prepared for that. I don't think I was prepared for how difficult it was going to be, but I knew that there was going to be challenges. We were trying to get a good latch, and it was really difficult. The next day I went to a breastfeeding group locally to where I live, and she was 2 days old. But I really wanted this to succeed, so I was determined to go. So my midwife came to visit me, and then I went straight out to the breastfeeding group. They gave me some support with positions and how to get a good latch, and things did improve a little bit, but I was still struggling. So I went to another breastfeeding group in Wolverhampton. They had a look at my latch one-on-one, and they also had a look inside my daughter's mouth, and they identified the tongue tie. She was 8 weeks old before I felt like, okay, now it doesn't hurt anymore. Now we're kind of in a groove with each other, and this feels like something that I can continue to do. Even now, when I feel like everything's fine and we're doing okay with our journey, I still like to go. In case I have any questions, but also it's nice to be able to offer support to other women who are coming in, and to have those women see that it is possible to reach a point with the baby that it's comfortable and it's easy, and it feels easy. There were some nights that my husband was like, Alexis, why don't you just put her on formula? You don't have to keep doing this. You haven't failed. If it's hurting that much, we'll just put her on formula. No, we're not doing that. I need to do this. And I think, like I said before, part of it was kind of reclaiming that power that I felt that I'd lost in birth. Almost like breastfeeding's an act of rebellion against what I'd experienced. And I am really glad that I pushed through it, because I think I have a really incredible bond with my daughter now. And it's a really nice bonding experience to breastfeed. But I do really sympathise with those women who don't succeed with it, because it is really challenging, and there are those moments that you think, I can't do this. I do think when I breastfeed in public, sometimes people look over and maybe are surprised, I suppose, because even as someone who breastfeeds, I notice how people are feeding their babies, and it is quite rare that I see in Wolverhampton women breastfeeding in public. So I think, yeah, people look over and are surprised maybe, but I haven't had any negative attitudes really. I'm quite comfortable feeding anywhere. It's interesting because I was a little bit body conscious before I had a baby, and now I have absolutely no problem getting my boob out and giving her a feed in public, and I don't care who's there and looking. It's really interesting the difference before and after. There's a few kind of cafes in town that I like to go to that are quite comfortable to sit in. They've got comfortable chairs, and there's a place called Lupo Lounge, which is a cafe bar in town, and that they have some really nice comfortable sofas. The staff are really friendly. It's nice and warm in there, and there's lots of space for the push chairs. And there's also a place called Glaze, and that's in Wolverhampton Art Gallery, and they also have some nice comfortable seating in there. I think that my advice would be to advocate for yourself and what you want for both birth and for breastfeeding. I think it's so important to be able to give your voice to what you need and what support you need. And I would also say that, you might take to it naturally, and that's great, but if not, there is support out there. And unfortunately, it is your responsibility to find it, because it's not always readily offered to you. So if you are struggling and you want to do this, you really, really want to, then look into what support is available before your baby arrives, so you know exactly where to go.